Did that work?
All right. There you go. We've got, well, who knows? With free programming, you never know if people are actually going to show up, right? But I want to wait maybe one more minute because we actually have 17 people.
Oh, that's awesome.
I know, it's really exciting. Ooh, we have a dog in attendance, everybody. Do you see it?
Puppy.
Oh. Oh, still very nice to see a person, but the dog is always welcome. Just,
Mhm.
we're animal friendly here. Um, so why don't we just start with a teeny introduction, and if people come in, we'll rope them in on it. And go ahead, everybody, unmute, because we're just gonna do a very quick, just like whip around. We're gonna introduce ourselves. Most of you probably know me somehow, um, but I'm Emily Wright. I'm all kinds of things, but here I am the founder and executive director of Tamarack Arts. Um, and the whole point of all of our programming is to make being an adult cello student um, more fun, more productive, and a lot less lonely. That is our whole point. And I want to introduce to you my esteemed colleague and just soul sister, awesome friend, Rosalind Torto. She's in Chicago. And would you tell them how we met?
Sure. So, I am a violist. I hope everybody's cool with that. But I also teach all string instruments. And I have a performance background, but then got into education. I was just avoiding it because my mom was a teacher. I was like, absolutely not. But definitely, education is my calling. I love collaborating with students of all ages. And I attended a workshop, I guess, a retreat with that was run by Mimi Zweig from Indiana University because I was just seeking information, and that is where Emily and I met in Tuscany, and the rest is history.
Also, we were in a room with like two very old, very small European beds. They were like rock hard. And like on our third morning there, like I woke up. Roz, did you point it out or did I point it out to you?
I think it was like a mutual realization.
There was a giant centipede going da na 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 on the ceiling above both of us in the bed, and it was just total panic. And I'm pretty sure Roz grabbed like a broom or a mop, and then it fell down on the pillow like next to me, and it was just like I've never actually slept after that. Never again. I will never sleep again. It was just like everyone's like Tuscany, it's beautiful and wine and da da, and also just like a centipede as big as a garden hose. It was terrifying. Anyway, so um, let's do a quick. I'll call on you. Just we're gonna do something super quick, just to say hi and get a sense of who's here. Like 5 seconds. Basically, say who you are, about how long you've been playing, and because we lead with vulnerability around here, we're gonna say something that you're finding difficult on the instrument. I'll go first, and then Roz, I'll have you go. So I'm Emily Wright. I've been playing about 38 years, and I find vibrato on my first finger super difficult. All right, Roz.
Well, you made me do math, and it's not noon here in Chicago, but my name is Rosalind Torto. I've been playing for 35 years, and something I find difficult is uh, aligning, like, how can I say this? Getting my bow to align with my fingers sometimes during like really fast passages.
Mm.
So timing, I guess, on that.
All right, so we're going over to Erin.
Hi, my name's Erin. I've been playing for about 25 years. Um, a constant challenge for me is keeping the bow in the string and
Mm.
not releasing all the time.
Fair enough. We got Betsy.
Hi, I've been playing 51 years, and I think I'm gonna have to go with you, Emily. Vibrato on my first finger, also.
Solidarity. Yeah. By the way, one of the finest cellists I know, Hans Jensen's son, who was like he was playing with the Chicago Symphony at age 13. He actually took a year off from Juilliard with the exact same issue. It's like a real thing. It's a real thing. So yeah. All right, lovely Kelly. Think you probably have to unmute. There
Hi,
she
I'm
is.
Kelly. I'm Kelly Riley. I've been playing for about 8 months and yeah, baby cellist, aspiring. One of the toughest things for me to do is to loosen my thumb on my bow on my right hand.
Yep. And if anybody here says, "No, I've never struggled with that," we know you're lying. So just quit it. We got lovely David in Colorado.
Yes, I've played about 30 or 40 years. Last night I had the privilege of hearing Ligoti's solo cello suite live, which was really wonderful. A cellist from Romania, I think it was very good. And my big bugaboo right now is left thumb pressure. That's what I've been working on.
All right. How about Judy?
I've been playing for about 5 years on and off, and learning as an adult. And I'm really just I'm working on so many things, but my tone and my bow arm and weight is just a constant struggle without crunching and cramping, and just really trying to work that through.
I think our warm up is actually going to be. If it doesn't help you immediately, hopefully it plants a little seed there, because that's something I struggled with a lot too. And so my warm up is based around not doing that. What about Alice? It's okay if you actually don't want to participate, that's fine. And then also we have a mystery phone number. So it's the phone company.
217.
Yeah, 217. Well, do you know what? That's actually fine.
That's me, Rex Gaskins. I've been
Hi, Rex.
I've been playing cello for 9 years, music for 55, and I'm trying to work up the fingerboard, shifting and particularly playing chords up the fingerboard, and struggling with that. Thank you.
Tough stuff, absolutely. Alice will give you one last chance, but it's absolutely fine if you actually don't want to like be a vocal participant in that. We still love you. I hope you feel the love beams. Probably. Okay. So with that, I was thinking of doing a bit of a warm-up, and this is when you can turn all of your mics off. If this is something that you want to try along with me, that's great. If you don't want to, that's also fine. But the whole idea behind a warm-up is, of course, we are trying to physically get the hands used to the instrument over again, right? And also, one of the things I always love about it is that when you leave the instrument and then you come back, so like I was playing about a half an hour ago, but now I'm like, I'm a little bit rusty, is that all of the things that I'm trying to work on. So for me, there's left hand tension, there's right hand grippiness, there is nerves, playing in front of other people. I can actually start solving those things in my warm-up. And also, though, it's an opportunity, because this whole class today is going to be about being aware of what you're physically doing on the instrument, as opposed to what we are mentally thinking about the whole time. So for our warm-up, I'm going to work on, we're going to do some slurs, because one of the most important things that we're going to be doing both in Roz's example and in mine is talking about the way we make one bow flow into the other, or not flow into the other, as it turns out. So let's all play a C of some sort. Any C you've got, your favorite C on your favorite string on your favorite finger. So for me, it's here. And what I want you to do is actually just place your bow at the frog. And let's all do the longest exhale possible. It might take a couple, breaths to fully get yourself loose. And then what we're looking is to kind of resign all of the weight of your elbows into the string. And since we're not going to hear anybody but me, it's fine if you actually do crunch, because crunching is sometimes a symptom that you've done things the right way. And what we're going to do is just, we'll do 4 counts on a down and 4 counts on an up, and then we'll add on to this. So here we go. 2, ready, no vibrato, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Next thing we're going to do, same exact thing, but what we want to do is let's see if we can decrescendo towards the tip, and then we're going to reassert and decrescendo coming into the frog. I'll demonstrate once a little quickly, and then we'll do it together. So it'll be kind of like this. And then what we're going to do with that slow 4 count. All right, resigning your elbows. Again, it's better to have a terrible sound and a great feeling body at this point in time. 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Up bow's much harder, isn't it? So then, let's think about we're going to do a slur between C and D. Let's make it on the same string. Let's not add a string crossing to complicate this. Again, resigning the weight of the world into the string. It's fine if at home you're like, I love it. That is a symptom of weight. We can always finesse it later. So we're going to do this. I'll demonstrate. The habit of most string players is to scallop our slurs, meaning, and then to make them 2 separate ideas. And sometimes we want that, right? Right? Like sometimes we actually want that little La Gioconda there for you. But a lot of times what we love about string playing is the power that we can get in connecting a ton of notes, right? Right? Like relentless, beautiful legato. So what we're going to practice is sustaining through your bow change. So you're going to feel like you're pulling like crazy here. So we're here. Right before you change, I want you to continue pulling. The reason that you don't, that we tend to do this is actually because you're smart, because we're thinking to the next thing we have to do. So what you have to do is let your right arm continue like an absolute zombie while your brain does move forward and consider the next note. So this is our warm-up. We're going to do it, I don't know, 5 or 6 times. So here we go. 1, 2, ready, and D, pull through, push through, pull through, breathe if you can, so as to stay alive, pull, push, pull, 1 more, pull, and come off. All right, so does anybody at this point have any question either what was the point of that, or kind of what were kind of the axis about which we're kind of rotating here, just trying to make sure that we are in control of what we're physically doing? That's the point of the warm-up, right? Because otherwise we don't know what we're doing, and then music or notes just sort of happen to you, right? How did this happen? Right, well, we did it. But it's good to just cultivate that awareness. And this also contributes directly to your ability to play with a sense of musicality. Any questions? I mean, this is 100% for you. Do not feel foolish. Any question enriches the other folks. Is that Kelly unmuting? Nope, okay, just making sure. All right, so Roz, how about you chime in? You've got some like left-hand ideas also, just to become aware there.
Sure. So everything, I feel like, the warm up, exactly what Emily was saying, like everything should be related in your practice session, right? So like for me, going like, well, I'm just going to warm up with this etude. Hello, that's technique work. Like really just trying to get your body physically set up. And I would just add to what you said, your practice space. that's kind of where it starts for me, where I'm going to be able to be comfortable. And, you know, I live in an apartment. I'm at my school right now, but, you know, like maybe I need a practice mute to feel comfortable, or just being in a great physical space. And then probably after I do a little bit of bow warm up, I like, as I'm getting into the left hand, sometimes I just, and it might look maybe different for a fiddle player or viola player like me, just relaxing my jaw. I tend to keep a lot of tension in my shoulders or in my jaw. So even just doing some of those open strings with my mouth open, or even in rehearsal in orchestra, I'll just make sure I'm like doing a stretch. That was less awkward when we're wearing masks, but just to be aware of that and let it go. So adding in the left hand, we're going to continue on with you know, keeping a really fluid right arm. And now we're going to do the whole like buy one get 27 million for free and start multitasking. You don't even realize you're doing it. But getting into some string crossings and also left hand. So keeping your finger close to the string. Forgive me, I do have like a gaudy red manicure right now because it's summer and I'm a teacher. So keep your finger really close to the string. Any baseball fans out there? Think about maybe batting in baseball. If you go back first, before you hit that fastball, you're going to be too late. So instead of wasting time being all the way up here, we want to keep our fingers close as possible and just bring it down. This is going to help with that thumb tension as well. Bring it down. I always think about an elevator just landing on the ground floor, not going through to the basement or anything like that, not crashing through, so that you have just the exact amount of tension. And then we're going to do just a few combinations. Someone else can math out how many. There's like infinite combinations, but let's slur open one, going across all four strings. We'll go open one, and then on the way down, we'll do one open. So I will, you know, I'll just start playing and you can just join in. Okay, so we all have C strings. That's awesome. Here, I'll go this angle. So we'll do it in rhythm. We'll just do 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and then we'll switch. So keeping that finger nice and close and incorporating with Emily's endless zombie arm bow, keep going, and string crossing. So 3 and 4 and. Now we'll go on the way down. So I'm going to start with the finger on the string and lift it up, 1 open, 3 and 4 and. Now you could do that with a stop bow. If you're finding that your bow distribution, you're running out of bow or something like that, you could change that up. Does that make sense? With a hook bow, a stop bow? And then the other thing you can do is do infinite amounts of finger combinations. So, you know, you might want to practice doing open 2 1 if you're working on a piece that's got a lot of, you know, F naturals, C naturals, B flats, E flats. So trying to find, you know, whatever your goal is for the day, a finger combination that works for you. And I think that's just, you know, we're multitasking, getting the left hand warmed up, that endless bow distribution, string crossings, all of that just happening as you're just going, all right, I think I'll do open 1 3, and that's going to be my finger combination. Does that make sense? Okay, that's just a bargainy kind of warm up. You can do it hook, you can do it slur, but I think that's just getting us set. It's just really getting us set.
Yeah, and the whole thing that we're trying to get you to pay attention to is not that you can go 01, 01, 01, but how you are going 01, 01, 01. Because right, that is the thing that ends up making us tired or injured or tense or whatever. So I love the elevator going just to the ground floor. And then the other analogy that all my students will be familiar with is Amit Paled's idea that you have a strawberry and that it's like a really ripe one, and that you're just trying to hold it between your thumb and whatever finger you're using, right? Because you can imagine just gushing into a really ripe strawberry, and that is more tension that we need. And if a giant like Amit Paled is trying to conserve energy on the instrument, then those of us who are not 6'5" and nearly 300 pounds, we could probably also do with that. So you want to get into some Brandenburg nerdery?
Yes. And just to tailor off what you just said, I find this is just me maybe, but once we start incorporating the left hand, the tension comes in the bow or tension comes in the body. Like, I don't know if that's just how I've been conditioned, but and doing a warm up like that, just being able to completely let go, make sure that, I'm not clenching my jaw or something like that, but I'm still doing different finger combinations, just like seems to prep me up. So we're all everything we're doing should always relate, like to being able to apply this. And regardless of how much information you received so far, like if you've been playing for 8 months or 38 years, I think the concepts that we're going to go over right now apply. So we're going to talk about a little bit about the Baroque era and being able to play, stylistically. I'm just sorry, pulling it up. There's so many memes made about this moment of like, what does this person's face look like when they're doing this? Okay.
If I could just share my screen, can
I
everybody
know, and
see
it's
my
like,
screen?
why
Yeah,
does my mouth just automatically open? I need to work on that. Okay. So everybody, can you see that? I'll try to like make it bigger here. Does that work for you? And we're going to give you this. We're going to send this to you in an email following this up. But so we're talking about compositional considerations. For our purposes right now, Brandenburg Concerto 3, we've got two versions of it for you that you'll be able to have. One is, the Merle J. Isaac. It's very accessible. It's an arrangement. And, I've done a lot of background gigs where I've gotten paid to use good old Merle's stuff, even though, it is an arrangement. No big deal. I love it. And then we have like the OG original as well. But my colleague, David Eccles, he's really a mentor to me. We work together at Vandercook College. And also he's now in Atlanta teaching at some amazing school there, some independent amazing school. Hate to say I don't know the name of it. I first explored this type of concept with him. So there's just like a little, I don't know if it's a limerick, it rhymes. I don't know. We'll just say it's these 4 points at the top that can help you with any Baroque piece you're playing. So good old Vivaldi, Bach. And so weak to strong, short to long, repeated notes, and change in song. And I'll be going through a couple of those things. I think I'll pass it to Emily when we hit repeated notes, that basso continuo that you find. So first you can learn a lot just from looking at what the heck you're playing, who wrote it. That's going to inform you a lot. So in the Baroque era, Bach was one of our composers, and just knowing a little bit about him, but then just centering yourself in that Baroque time, you're going to know maybe just what it sounds like. Also, just in that time, we know that a lot of things were left up to the performer. And that's what we want to hit home with you today is like Bach trusted us a lot. Okay. No offense towards Mahler or someone like that, but you're not getting as much instruction. So, just knowing a little bit about the historical perspective, but let's get into the technical considerations. So for this Brandenburg, Most of the piece is built around G, D, C major, not too much extension beyond third or fourth position. Rhythmic demands pretty basic, although steadiness of the pulse should be maintained through string crossings and descending passages. Okay, and the Baroque style of bowing, so stylistically, it's really crucial, the Baroque style bowing, to keep the rhythmic nature of this composition. There's nothing worse than hearing something that just starts sounding like an endless, monotonous kind of like etude. And I think with this piece, being able to really get it to jump off the page is what you'd be going for. So what do we mean by weak to strong? All right, everybody, here's good old Brandenburg. What are the strongest beats? So if let's just think about this in 4/4. So 1, 2, 3, 4. What do we usually think of as the strong beats? Yeah, 1 or 1 in 3 in Western classical music. So there's not any syncopation happening here. It's pretty straightforward. But how can we make that really jump off the page? So thing 1, yeah, Emily.
Are you trying to show us the Brandenburg music itself?
Yeah.
It's not on our screens. At least it's not on my screen.
What's on your screen?
Your Word document.
Huh.
You probably have to minimize that, or maybe it's frozen or something.
You know, this is why I like you, because
just making sure, because
All
you're
right.
like, here's old Brandenburg, and I'm like,
Oh, I am. Oh, I'm there.
That's old Bill Gates. There we go. There we go.
Okay. Can you imagine that I did that with 8th graders for a while? They
just
really, thank you for being forgiving. Okay, so weak to strong. So beats 1 and beat 3, of course, those are, you know, what we consider in Western classical music, usually the stronger beats. So to really make this come to life, we want to have 4 leading to 1 and 2 leading to 3. This changed a lot for me as I just try to apply this to all Baroque music, honestly. So even if we look at this cello part, right? Everybody here's the cellist? All right, so it's fair to start with the cello part, and yes, I'll read bass clef on viola. We can do this. So instead of just playing, let's just take, and he gives you a clue with this pickup, but let's just try. So G to G, it's open to 4. We've got that there. Let's just try playing this, just accentuating 1 and 3, just as if, you know, just chugging along, playing a couple of measures of quarter notes. So let's just be boring, play as boring as you possibly can. Measure, full measure 1 and measure 2, 0 pickup. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Try it again, as boring as you can possibly play. Ready, go. Okay, great. So I'm happy with playing in tune. I'm happy with being pretty steady on my rhythm, but I want more. I want to get the artistic aspect of this. I want to put in more to these quarter notes, especially as a cellist, you're going to be driving the whole bus. I don't care if the first violins have more notes, it's all about you. So let's now have our weaker beat. So that would be beat 2 and beat 4. Think of it as you're on a trampoline and you're leading to the next note. Okay, so let's do this without the pickup. I can demonstrate it one time. And when I mean accentuate, let's just think of it as loud and soft. So if we can make beat 2 and 4 a little louder, it's going to help us land on those stronger beats. So that's what we mean, weak to strong, using our dynamics and our weight in our bow and our bow speed to lead to the next note. So here's the demonstration without the pickup. I'll put the pickup in. If I apply it to something that has, I'm going to go in the violin realm, these eighth notes, which you'll get. If I give a little bit more speed and a little bit more weight on the weak leading to the strong, then we come away from sounding robotic. Is this making any sense, Emily? Feel free to.
Yeah, it's making sense. Can we distill the thing you were talking about on? I know we want 4, right? Right. We want the downbeats to be heavy because the dancers need to know when to plant their feet. Is kind of what we're really trying to do. But then, are you saying that 4-1 is what that quarter note line should really kind of emphasize?
Yes.
Okay.
4-1, 2-3, 4-1, 2-3.
So we're placing them in time maybe also a little tiny bit differently. Okay, sounds
Absolutely. Does that make sense to everybody? 4 and 1 are kind of connected. You could think of it as some kind of like artistic slur even. 4-1, like I'm handing you something, or some of those dance gestures, of course, from that time. But it's like the trampoline aspect, or I'm inviting you over. 4-1, 2-3, and we get that with bow speed. And I think it just comes down to bow speed. So we can even try the beginning now with the pickup, and let's try it with a pause. So we could go. Good. And then let's skip to measure 3. And let's start on the eighth notes there. Full measure 3. So G, F sharp, E. And then that, as we play it all the way through, just even mentally. If I group things mentally that way, 4-1, 2-3, it really is going to change your sound. Do you want to touch on some repeated notes?
Yeah, sure. So something that cellists get a whole lot, and violists actually do too, right? I don't even have the music in front of me. We don't even need to worry about what's on the page at this time. You know that we sometimes are like the engine of the orchestra. I have literally a fly trying to get into my nose right now. I'm like, I'm vegan. I don't want it. All right. But if there was like an eggplant or something, I'd be like, all right, I gotta take some time. All right. So the thing is, it's actually an honor to play a bunch of repeated notes because there's so much effect that we have. We are the context that then the melody sits in. And especially in Baroque music, I'm going to do a little fast because it's easier to demonstrate quickly, but then we're going to take it a little bit slower. How many of us have chugged along an orchestra? Right? But you know that like people like me, I make the beatific cello face, happy to be alive. But then you watch like 7th grade orchestra and they're like, right? They're like all over the place. There's no life there. And what's interesting is we can create tension and build a phrase with how long our notes are and how much they are or are not usually joined together. So for instance, that is restrained. And that is a powerful thing because we are sometimes asked, you can't have tension and release if there's not the tension of holding back, right? So be able to have a blank canvas, My notes are mostly even. What's that you say? I just made the phrase with the, we're going to assume the violinists, those bastards, they get all the good stuff. Joking only. I actually love playing this kind of stuff. So if you watch though, so not only, you see I'm also, of course, we're not going exactly side to side here. Actually, Hans Jensen on this Cello Mind or Practice Mind account on Instagram had a bunch of really nerdy, very specific things about why we address the strings sometimes at an angle. Definitely watch that because they spend a half an hour that we don't have talking about that. Super useful stuff. But basically, so I lengthen the 4, I poke the up bow. That's something to practice also, because down bows, very easy to accent. So sometimes I practice just to make sure I can do the opposite. So I'm in control. Also, don't worry if you're hitting your other string, one thing at a time, practice the accents. Also, if bouncing the bow is something that you're not doing right now because that just seems out of the realm, practice our other bread and butter Baroque technique, which are these bows that I feel like they're shaped like a comet, right? There's something beautiful and round at the beginning, but the note just kind of goes away. So practice it this way, because we legit play these bows. Give me a grave or an adagio, molto adagio, and we are breaking people's hearts with these bows. And then we can lead to the next thing and then come back, right? So these are all changes I made, mostly with not where I am in the string. The fingerboard is the danger zone for most of us. I call it the no tone zone, right? So I am making changes in the speed and how much I'm allowing my bow to be in the string, which in the Baroque you got to be really careful with, right? So what we tend to do is be in the string at the beginning and then allow the natural decay on the down bow. Up bow is much harder, so practice that 5 times as much because we have to lighten up where we are. But look, I'm not on the fingerboard. I'm fingerboard adjacent, but really the fingerboard is a danger zone. It's the easiest place to get quiet for this kind of stuff, but it's also the first place that's going to disfigure your intonation. As your hand moves its way up the neck, you're going to get weird sounding notes. So I'd say don't do it unless you've got a Strad or like really it says sul tasto. All right, so I know this is like drinking from a fire hose, but that's also why we are recording this, so you can watch back to it. And what I'd like you to think about as we get even towards the end, what are a couple things that stood out to you? It doesn't even have to be the stuff that she and I are stressing. We just want to give you little seeds of ideas that blossom into other, concepts that you can apply broadly to your playing. And also, if everybody got this, we do not expect you to get all of this after this, right? We go to music school. We do lessons for 10 years before we get to music school, and it's all the same, like 4 things over and over again. So just think, if I can get 15% of what was talked about today, that's a win, and you can go back and watch it over and over again, or a specific part, and practice that over and over again.
I'm going to add in just 2 things, and one of them you did. So just like kind of thinking about bow weight, let's just recognize that the tools we have right now didn't exist in the Baroque era, right? So they had a completely different bow and the weight was different. So you could also practice just holding at the balance point so that you don't have this heavy frog that we have today. And that just automatically, you can feel the difference in your bow, and it sounds much different. Of course, you're a little bit limited in the length, but that's actually good. So actually holding it there. And then the other thing you did that's just specific to cello playing, holding the bow, here, maybe like the upper quarter of the bow with your left hand. This is so weird. I'm going to try this on my viola. But how you did this, Emily, just going back and forth like this, just kind of alleviating that bow hold. If you're dealing with bow hold stuff, hey, let me just help myself out here. And also just that I think it helps you get weight, like just in touch with like weight distribution. So those two things, Baroque, practicing Baroque stuff at the balance point, and then using both hands on the bow as you come across the string. If you're feeling any tension or just to for weight distribution.
And would you agree that in general, Baroque music, with the exception of maybe a whole note, that the longer a note is written on the page, like that it actually gets more distance around it, and then as we get faster notes like eighths or sixteenths, that those are generally joined together, right? So we're like, we're not, because that's like a whole other character, right?
Absolutely. And repeated, like you said before, repeated notes are not there to just torture the hell out of someone. They're actually important. That's why they're there. But if you're saying the same thing over and over, you don't want to sound the same, right? And it can be actually a really fun way of even just warming up. Just playing around with different swells. You can really control all those bastard violinists. Oops, you said that earlier, so.
Did not, liar.
I think they're great people, but they do have a lot of the fun parts. But you can really control the phrasing, honestly, with a lot of repeated notes and how you play them.
Right, and also it's one of the things that we love about playing in an orchestra is the idea that we're kind of communicating with other people. So yes, I'm absolutely joking about violinists, but I absolutely love it when I'm playing this Brandenburg and I am staring down the first stand to make sure that I am right, that we have like a communication and that I'm doing everything possible to match their gestures, the lengths of their bows. Like, that's actually fun. That's what keeps it from being monotonous. I love that Merle J. Isaac. Like, I have it memorized from festival. Some of you will know, American festival competitions. It's like, I've had that memorized since middle school. But it's a great opportunity because it's such a simple part to get out of the music and actually start looking at the length of bow, because that's another thing, that middle school orchestra, the kind of one of the big differences is that when everybody's taking the same amount of bow, you start playing as a section. You can't even help it. So really, and if you're like, well, I'm not in an orchestra right now, totally fine. Go ahead and look at somebody playing a piece that you can play online and try to match what they are doing in terms of where they physically are in the bow. And that's what we were talking about with this warm-up. Being aware of where you physically are. Every bow has a reason for where it is, the speed, the pressure, the location, the angle. And if you are aware of those things, then the bow doesn't happen to you. Like it's all happened to us, right? Where you're like, oh my God, I'm a victim of where my bow has just put me, right? I'm like, why is this happening to me? Why is this so terrible? It's because at some point you gave over to probably pay attention to your left hand, which we all do at some point. Like we're all seduced by the thing that's like right here. Anyway, so physical awareness of what you're doing and then having reasons for it. And you're gonna get Roz's document, and it goes more into detail about like, here's why we do this thing. So again, don't worry that you're not like digesting all of this right now. We're just gonna present it to you and then you can kind of simmer with it. Anything else that you wanna talk about with this, Roz?
No, I think just like, again, like you said, we're talking a little bit about ensemble playing and matching, but I mean, any Baroque that you play in your repertoire, you can apply this to. Absolutely.
Yep. So how about you bestow hosthood on me?
Can do that.
Dun, 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 dun. I guess I can do that actually, though, can't I myself? There's that thing that's like reclaim host. That's so aggro. Look at me, I'm the host now. Do I look different? Do I look more powerful? I know, I don't. All right, so we're gonna let's first get old Brahms up here. Poom poom. Then we're gonna go over yonder. Let's do this.
As you're pulling that up, I think we want to hit home on, now we're going to another, era of music, but it doesn't matter if you're playing something that's, advanced or you're doing your warm up. Like all of these concepts are for you and can make your playing artistic. You could play the most artistic Twinkle Twinkle Little Star for yourself. And I think it's just more gratifying. But this is for you, like no matter how much information you received so far through your studies.
So I want everybody to unmute because this is actually going to be a bit of conversation because I'm going to show you how to make decisions about where you're going to be in your bow, how you're going to phrase things. I used Roz's document kind of as a template. So, so this is Brahms. By the way, can you see it okay?
Yes.
All right, good. And these bowings, they are controversial as F.
I think you're starting up.
They're great, but these are actually from a concert I played with Zubin Mehta conducting. So it's good enough for Zubin, good enough for Yubin. I hate myself. Okay, so Brahms. What era does this guy belong to? Romantic, and kind of when. We have to estimate. Don't worry, this is not a quiz. But like, do we have any idea of when that is? I know it's like super vague. Well, Brahms is he's a German guy, and he lived 1833 to 1897, which means, do we take any of our Baroque conventions into mind when we decide about what we do with our bow here? It's unequivocal. No, we don't. We have to start from some completely different place. His life actually completely overlapped with the Victorian era. What do we think about when we think about Victorian? There's no wrong answer here. You're like the space shuttle. No, that would be wrong. That would actually be wrong.
Prim and proper.
I like it.
Yep, it's funny because prim and proper, but what is the other half of it? There's a movement of people straining against prim and proper, right? That's why we think about that's why we all watch like Victorian romances. That's why it's so steamy, right? Because they're pulling against all of this prim and proper. And Brahms belonged to kind of an artistic movement. And by the way, you're like, how do you know these? Legitimately, look at Wikipedia first. It's fine. It's not a good primary source, as we know. But still, that's how I know these things. I look at that and maybe I know this stuff from music school, but like all of this is readily available. So the dates, and then look at the art movement. So that he was a member of the aesthetic people. And their whole idea is that art doesn't have to be for a purpose. The purpose is beauty. Okay, fair enough. So they have all these ideas about being passionate. And then where was this music heard? That's also really important to know, right? Because chamber music, literally music for dudes in a room, right? This is symphonic music. What does that mean? Where is this played? David, you can do it. I don't care if you're the only guy talking.
Orchestras. I mean, in concert
halls
halls,
and public
big
spaces,
areas,
yeah.
public spaces, big areas.
Right. Advances in technology meant we're going to have instruments that are much closer to the ones that we have now. They're still going to be mostly, I think, on gut strings. I'm not sure if they started wrapping strings in metal. I think that's more of early 20th century. But it is it's music that's meant for playing with lots of guts, right? The orchestras, Brahms orchestras, they swelled in size, right? Mozart orchestras much smaller. So then we're thinking about this. I don't know if all of you know this. This is an iconic cello melody. Actually, let's make sure with the hosting thing. Can you, does this sound okay?
Yeah.
Sounds okay, just making sure that original sound didn't go off because it blanks you. All right, so this is an iconic cello melody. So what do we think about the change in bow from the first slur to the second slur? Do we want to decrescendo the E? Because that's our natural tendency, right? Is that what we're looking for here?
No.
How do we know, by the way? How do I even know that, though? Why?
Well, because it says espressivo and focal.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, espressivo, you can still...
Yeah.
We still can. But you know what? That's not on the page. And even though there are these huge bowings written in, look what the well, I think of the larger slurs as phrase marking,
Right.
right? So I think the first place to start always is play exactly what's on the page. Is there a rest after that E? Is there a decrescendo? Absolutely not. So remember how we warmed up with pulling through your bow? That's how we avoid any kind of scallop or decrease in energy from the E to the D sharp. So, oh, iconic, man. I've got goosebumps. I didn't even sound that good. Just Brahms wrote a great piece. All right, so we can then also start looking about parsing. Why do we think about parsing things? Well, we have to shift, don't we? From that, I love that B sharp. If you see
Right.
B sharp coming at you in the halt, just go the other direction. Give me a C. B sharp. Who's doing that? Anyway, so this phrase, are there any of you who don't know this piece or this kind of opening? Yes? Okay,
It's
that's
one of the
fine.
symphonies.
So for those of you who do, how would you describe, and Roz, you can chime in as well, how would you describe like the vibe of this, let's just say the opening volley, the first three measures?
Well, I think it's like it's relentless, kind of like relentless. And as I'm looking at it, what the hell are the purpose of bar lines? To keep us organized, right? Just to keep us organized. That is what it is. And then it just gets in the way of phrasing at times. And this is just a physical representation of that whole concept. Because if I listen to this, there's no like organization of sound to what I'm seeing on this page. It's
Right.
just endless, passionate playing.
Right, and that first note, by the way, that doesn't sound like a pickup. To me, this sounds like 1, 2, 3, 4, but it's not. So confusing. I can't tell you how many times I bungled that pickup, by the way. Like in rehearsal, it's pretty brutal. Anyway, but this is also things that you should know about Brahms. See how these are all considerations for what you actually do on your instrument, right? He's a passionate man. He was in love with Bob Schumann's wife, fabulous composer, Clara Schumann. This is all about yearning. How do we make something yearn? Well, it's relentless. The bow has to be relentless. That's why I'm telling you to pull through. If we go back to Brandenburg, what was going on there? This is music for court. It is all about refinement, restraint, and setting a vibe. Just like, and so what do? Is it appropriate to play for that Brandenburg? Probably not. I'm probably going to take the whole thing back because it's all about elegance and refinement. And so, look, I changed where I was in the bow. I changed how much my bow sank into the string. So for this, when we're playing something that's romantic and you know you've got the melody, I always like to, and my students will be very familiar with this metaphor analogy. So arco, right, comes from archery. I actually like to think about gearing up to play this first note because a lot of us are like forte and we go, you car crash the first note, which is not, there's no accent there. We do not want one. We want it to be like you're walking in on something that's already happening. Archery, arco, I want you to imagine that tension of having a bow that's fully pulled and then you just let it go. So do you notice that in the release, right, nobody pushes the bow forward. The weight is this. So I'm gonna release all the weight of my arm into the string. I'm gonna surrender. I'm gonna breathe. And then I'm just gonna move to the side. That's how you get that romantic. It's as hard as you can push on the string without hurting yourself or crushing the sound. Loud in Bach, totally different, pulling through my bow. Brahms, I'm really like pressing sound into the string and coming through the instrument that way. So then we're gonna play this absolutely. That just depends on your conductor, because some conductors will go. You just have to know. Both of those are completely legit. So that is where you If you don't have a conductor because you're playing this at home for fun, go with what you like. But then look at what I always say, look at the B's, Boulez and Bernstein. Listen to how they do it. Those are two that are almost always great. And they also both tend to play tempos that are kind of fat in slow movements, which is nice if you're just learning something. So now let's just look though. We've got what I think is the trickiest thing for the bow. You see the last measure here that I've got the dotted rhythm. Because we've got slurs and dots. What? Why is he doing this? Well, we can also have tenutos, right? There's the difference. So tenuto is, I think your bow doesn't stop. They're pulses, little shoves at the beginning of the note. But these are dots, yes, but it's slurred. If you wanted it really short, first of all, that's Baroque. That's why it's not written that way, because that ain't the style of the time. What he wants, a dot doesn't mean that a note is short. A dot means that there is space around the note. And in the Romantic era, if we have something that's all in the same bow, but there are dots, they're just saying, play these as eighth notes, but leave a little tiny bit of air between them. That's what you get. That's not easy, but that's how you know exactly what he wants. And then again, your conductor might say, oh, so I've heard people go, and I've heard some people, which isn't stylistically correct, but the guy on the podium, or dame, I suppose, has the authority to tell you how it gets played so everybody agrees. Anyway, so let's just do a quick review here of the differences between your just assumptions about how to play notes in the Baroque and then in the Romantic. And I purposely did not go classical, because classical is a mess because they're figuring it out and all the options are open. Beethoven broke everybody with those last couple symphonies and those last couple string quartets. I think he's like the guy who birthed the Romantic movement. But early Beethoven, I'm always like, is that late Mozart? I don't know. I can't tell. So let's go around, and I really would like, also, if you're like, I'm not super clear on that, we are here to make it super clear. And remember, listening to all of us talk, it is like drinking from a fire hose. There's a lot of information. So let's stop this. You will get this. Boop. And now back to everybody. Let's go around and just talk a little bit about how you would address. Let's go. Erin, are you okay to go first? All right. So yeah, tell me, like, what's one of the main differences if you just know that something was written in a year that began in the early 17s? You know, what are some of the assumptions you might make?
Early 17s.
Oh yeah, just the Baroques, basically.
Okay,
we just know
Baroque,
that it's in a Baroque.
Things I have to think about when I know it was written in the Baroque is I always trip up over are the short notes held longer or shorter, because there is a very specific vibe, and if you just play what's written, it doesn't sound right. It sounds very flat, like not flat as in not sharp, but it sounds very
right. And that's what Roz demonstrated at the beginning, right? You just kind of barf out the notes on the page.
Yeah.
It can absolutely just sound very dry. And that's actually why it's so important to kind of add peaks and valleys that are colloquial, because Bach trusted us to know that. But
except
like
I don't have a cultural context like they did. So I look at it and I'm like, it looks very plain, but I know I've heard recordings where there's a whole bunch of extra stuff going on, which means that the composer is trusting me to bring what I've got to it. And I don't have it, which means I need to acquire that information somehow.
That's right. That's absolutely right. And also, though, none of you should be like born knowing this. And I didn't get much of this addressed in my private lessons at all. It was only music school orchestra, an orchestra where everybody is learning these colloquialisms, that I got it. And a lot of community orchestras do not treat themselves like learning orchestras. And so you still don't get that information. Roz, you have something to say?
Yeah, I was just thinking like, yes, we've used like, repertoire to make these distinctions today, but you really could just take a good old fashioned D major scale and apply the concepts and go, okay, so if I'm working on Baroque, maybe I hold my bow here just to get that Baroque bow weight. And then I'm going to think about the second note I play leading to the pitch change. So instead of just, I can go.
Yeah.
I'll go back to regular bow style. And even though I'm overdoing it, it doesn't matter because I'm working on that up bow. And then if you're going to go romantic, maybe I want to think about sinking into the string, having this U shape, like I'm literally going inside of the string and just physically sustaining my sound, because what we're trying to do is just physically, what do I need to do to achieve the sound I want? You are going beyond the page. You're a method musician, much like a method actor is just going to totally go into their character. That's what we're trying to get you to do. You have to add yourself into the equation and what you're physically doing to achieve your desired sound: speed, weight, separation, and then of course all the mental things that we said. But I think I have a hard stop at 12:10, so I'm still hanging out for a while, but I just wanted to express to you physically, what the hell am I doing? Because we can think all day long, like, I want this to sound expressive, but what does that mean? What do I physically have to do? And then being a method musician for sure.
All right, Betsy, can I see if there's something that you picked up, like either a difference or just something that stands out to you, something that you might apply when you're playing either one of these things, really?
Yeah, it's just the context, the perspective. Am I playing by myself? Am I playing a melody by myself? Am I playing as a foundation for somebody else? What's my purpose and my context? That kind of thing.
Absolutely.
Think.
So, Kelly, is there anything that kind of like stood out to you, or is there something that's unclear? Because that is super useful, because again, we spewed out a lot of information.
Well, Betsy's remark just now about context. Who am I playing with? How large is the ensemble? Am I a soloist? Am I a supporting? Just opening those things up, because I have a very well educated ear, and I sing as well. But the business of and as a soprano, I get the melody a lot. So I'm like the violinist to some degree as a singer. But now I'm stepping back to an instrument that has more of a support role, and being very new, I have to remember that there are a variety of different contexts for this instrument. And I've been trying to listen to hear a lot of those in months past as I'm learning to play the instrument now, finally. So yeah, so Betsy's remark, just that's that broader 40,000 foot level to look at all the different contexts in which you can play the instrument. That does stop you. It's very versatile. Like, oh, right.
So,
yeah.
Judy, can I ask you like a brass tacks question? I'm going to put you on the spot, but only because you were talking about this. What might change in terms of where you physically put your bow down, either in the string, or like what changes from Baroque to, let's just say, a full-throated romantic melody? How might you mechanically change your bow?
Well, one thing I was going to say just even before that, but then address that, is if I'm looking at the piece of music and I'm looking at my plan, let's say I'm going to practice it for the first time, there'd be many steps before simply sitting down and practicing. But if I was focusing on my bow in general, I obviously am determining the character of the music. Before even playing my bow, I have to figure out how much bow am I going to use, and looking at the piece in smaller phrases. Do I need to be at a certain part of the bow? For example, a few bars after I'm starting, even not that I do this, by the way, but I know I understand the concept. And so, for example, if it's a, romantic piece and I know that I'm not playing it on the fingerboard and I want a certain weight and speed and but I know that, if, 4 notes ahead, I have to be at the frog to get this very long bow. I have to, plan out all the characteristics of my sound by my weight, by my speed, where my bow is, where in the bow I'm playing, and look ahead a little bit. So even when I start practicing in small amounts, depending on whether it's a Baroque piece or if it's a romantic piece, as you said, and I know like in the Brahms piece, a lot of the bow directions were changed. So there's, if it's something in an orchestra, which I haven't played in many orchestras or anything, but it might be very different than if I'm playing something for myself and I have a lot of leeway, or if I'm playing one of the Bach suites, I have leeway to kind of do whatever I want, as opposed to playing with other people, then I'm stuck.
But funny story, even in the Bach suites, some of the bowings are written, for instance, I'm thinking about if you do that bowing without shocking the up bows,
That's hard.
it's a losing proposition, right? So what we do is we want to shock the up bows. It makes a great shape. And the natural crescendo just comes out as you fight harder and harder against that slight tendency of the down bows being bigger than the up bows. The bowing always has to serve the music. And even if you get a part that looks like the bowings are impossible, like these bowings in the Brahms I showed you, they're very, very hard if you're playing loud. That's why it's broken up, because Jiminy Christmas. No, we just want to saw. I want to use up a whole bunch of bows, so I'm not totally crushing the string. But yeah, every single bowing serves the music. It has to do that. This is the thing. This is the music maker. This is just a typewriter. This is where all the music comes from. And every single time you change something, it changes the way the music comes out. So, and at first that's like, oh no. But guess what? If you don't like the way it sounds, you have the ability to radically change things just by moving a couple inches. David, can we have
Yes.
yeah,
Great.
we have what are your thoughts? And Roz,
No,
if you have to go, we love you.
Your point, and I wrote it down, every bow has a reason for where it is.
Mm-hmm.
And what came to my mind is that we, up until now, we think of the bow as like the air in a bagpipe. You put the air in and the thing just goes. But in fact, it's essential. And so that's what I've learned. That's what I've got this morning. And that's very good. That's a very good point. I appreciate that.
Yeah. And so basically you can see how like we could go 3 hours and we would still all feel like, dang it, we scratched the surface.
Right.
But if there is just one thing, because I've been to 1,000 master classes, honest to God, at university, I think I probably saw 50 of them a semester because we were required to watch everybody else's master class. Each one of those I picked up probably one thing, just one. So don't feel bad that you're like not in full possession of like, I know exactly how to interpret romantic music by what I do with my bow. Just keep returning to these ideas, and you can always ask your private teachers. And then also, Tamarack, at least 3 of our classes every summer are something about bow nerdery, right? Because that's our main task. It is the hardest thing about playing a stringed instrument by like a very long way. So just realize that you're not a loser because you have to keep coming back to this, because it is what we have to keep coming back to. Roz, anything else? I know you got to go off and be a busy working musician in Chicago.
Well, and a parent. So like, even if your kid's 20, let's just say it's a different world. No, I just want to say thank you. Thank you, everybody. I so appreciate connecting with you this morning. And I hope you just feel supported and connected as musicians. These are things that we're all talking about, no matter what we're playing, where we're playing. It's part of the craft.
It's what she and I are practicing in our private practice. So I want to always stress that, like, we are not coming to you from some above place. Like, we might only be a couple steps in the path ahead, and we're just like, this is what's helped us. This is what has helped our other students. And you are very much like, you are the reason that we are here. We are so happy to be here for you. Fellow musicians, our colleagues, like, that's, no matter what level you're at, like, this is all for you, and we just want to share that good stuff with you. So we're going to send you these documents, including my insane Zubin Mehta bowings, but it does allow you to saw through a ton of bow, which is fun. And if you have any follow-up questions, I'll nerd out with you. So you can just email me, you can email Roz, we're around. And yeah, because we're gonna stop now, but if you have any other questions, actually I'll hang around for a couple minutes if you've got questions, but we're happy to hear it.
I'll see you all later. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, here for questions if anybody has them. I got nothing going on the rest of the day.
Thank you
That's a
so
lie. I
much.
have a pedicure, but that's it.
I did have just one question. You
Yeah.
talk about warm-ups. How long typically? I know this is a guy, we've always want to know numbers, but how long would you typically say, okay, that's the question.
Very rarely do I actually put numbers on things, unless we're doing, I like working in fives, right? I'm like, if you can play this section 5 times at this speed, then you get to graduate to the next one, just because that's enough time for your luck to run out. But with a warm-up, funny story, here's why I'm not attaching a time to it, because I actually sometimes go back into warm-up mode even after I've been practicing for 40 minutes. Because if I'm like really working on my first finger vibrato, and that's what you have to put out the fire. Sometimes you wake up in the morning, you're like, shit, I just want to get better at that measure of popper, and you have to do that. So I will warm up with whatever skill is better for the popper etude. But then I'm like, okay, well, now it's time for me to get into the liggity, right? That I'm learning because of you. You made me learn the liggity. It's so beautiful. Anyway, but that has a totally different skill set. So what I do is I actually move myself back into that like proto practice where I start conditioning the skills that I need for that really fast second movement, or because there's all those double stops in the first movement. And here's how I know when it starts feeling like I am in control of it as opposed to having to control myself. I feel that there's something just gives way. And I'm like, now I can play the piece with this skill happening in my hand. And by the way, don't leave warm-up to go into practice until you have that skill. And you might need to just not practice the piece and practice the skill for days and days and days, right? Like but that's what we have. That's what we do. We spend days and days and days working on an extension without freaking out, or modifying a first finger vibrato so it's not a palsied disaster. Looking at me. It really is wild, you guys. It likes to spin up like super fast, like an ice skater, like doing a spin. So it's like so much effort for me to control that stupid thing. Anyway, so you should just feel the skill yield.
Okay, good.
Right.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Anybody else, my dear friends?
Thank you so much. I have to go, but I really appreciate your time and
I
learning.
appreciate your being here and your candor. Good luck with your bow.
Thank you.
All right. Anybody else? We're good. We're good.
Very good.
All right. Love you all very much, and I will see you at whatever next hijinks we get up to.
Thank you, Emily.
See you guys.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.